Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today, coach to other life coaches, Monique Scott. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Cindy and Jackie will be back next week, but Monique has been kind enough to step in and
hey, everybody.
Say hello. It's been a while.
Hi.
It's good to have you back, though.
It's great to be back.
Even though the intro isn't quite accurate anymore because you don't do the coaching so much as you did before, but that's okay. It's still great to have you back.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, this is exciting what you've been doing. And if I remember correctly, you had set a goal for this new project of yours, and we'll have to kind of remind people what that project is. But you're going to have your first event within the first 3 months, and I'm really curious. And we're almost at that point now. Have you gotten there? Has it actually happened? So I'm kind of doing things in reverse order. Let's go back and remind people exactly what you decided to do, because you made this major change in your career and in your life. And you did it almost at the drop of a hat, which really impressed me, I have to say.
I don't know if it's impressive or just indicative of classic Monique, but
well, whatever, I'll go either way.
Yeah. So I had decided a couple months ago that I was going to kind of put my coaching on the back burner and focus on real estate, which had been going pretty well. But, the more I got into real estate, the more I got a chance to kind of feel around and see where I wanted to be. So wholesaling real estate is really what I set out and intended to do. So I did
define that term, because a lot of people aren't going to understand what that is. Wholesaling. What do you mean wholesale real estate? You go out, you buy a house, or you sell it. What's the deal? What's going on?
Yes, I'm sorry, Walt. I'm sorry. For those of you who do not know, wholesaling is when you buy a distressed property. So you probably have seen what they call bandit signs around town, or maybe stuck at the corner that says, "We buy houses, we buy ugly houses," right? We buy houses in any condition, call this number.
Right.
So basically, wholesaling is you call that person, you have a house, maybe you inherited the home, maybe the home is in so much disrepair that it's not livable, and you just want to get rid of it, right? Mm-hmm. And you just want to get some money for it. You're not looking for top dollar or anything like that. And so basically, Walt, what you do is I will come out. Sometimes they come out, but, I would come out, look at the property, assess the damage, if you will, right? And offer you cash for the home. So I am not the one who is going to, quote unquote, buy the house. Really? So what I'm going to do, Walt, is I'm going to get you to sign the contract that says you're willing to sell me your house for $40,000, right? But before that, I have already gone in, looked at your house, assessed how much it would be for the after repair value of the home, so that when I sell the contract, because that's what I'm selling, I'm not selling the home, I'm selling my interest in the home, which is the contract, to an investor.
Right.
So, we have negotiated for $40,000, but because I know once this home is fixed up, it's going to be worth easily for the real estate investor. It's going to be worth, let's say, $100,000. What I'm going to do is the difference between that is going to be $60,000, right?
Right.
So potentially I could have a $60,000 spread, but they're not going to buy it for $100,000.
No.
They'll probably buy it for, like, say, 80. So I just made $40,000.
Cool, $40,000, yeah, on a distressed property.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, being a wholesaler, you get to set your own price. As long as you're really, really good at being able to figure out what the after repair value is going to be on a home, that's when you're really successful. Most people fail because they're not that good at it, but it's not as hard as you might think. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, but doesn't everything, right? So,
but this is not for the faint of heart. This is for somebody who really is willing to dive in and learn and apply themselves and learn from the
Yeah.
best and all that kind of stuff. Because if you
Yeah.
try to do this, imagine what would have happened if you tried to do this on your own without training.
Yeah. And honestly, when you talk about the training, it's really, I went to YouTube University. I found a
Hmm.
couple of gurus that I followed, connected with some local people in Atlanta,
Hmm.
real estate investors, got involved in a couple of real estate investing groups around town. And that's how I learned, just connecting with people, finding real real estate buyers, not people who say they do and they really don't, right? And just teaching myself. But you're right, it's not for the faint of heart. It's simple, but it's not easy. That's
Right.
the thing. It's simple, but it's not easy because if you don't like cold calling, if you don't mind, somebody cussing you out, hanging up in your face, telling you
Hmm.
don't call me again. No, I don't want to sell my house. If you're not up for that, yeah, which most people aren't, right? Then it could be kind of challenging. But I didn't have any
Yeah.
problems with anybody.
That's
I had
pretty
a couple of
cool.
people. I only had one guy who texted me back after we had spoke, and he said, I'm calling the feds on you."
Oh, okay.
But it's not illegal. I mean,
Yeah.
people say that just to try to scare you. They don't want you to call them again. So I didn't
Yeah.
call him anymore.
And that's not something I think most people would have associated with something like this, hearing about it for the first time. With cold calling, why would you have to cold call? It doesn't make any sense. You're just buying and selling houses.
Yeah, because sometimes one of the things is what they call, or what we call, driving for dollars. So literally driving the neighborhoods in your city, in your area, or maybe not even your city. Maybe you go out as far as 50, 60 miles outside of, like I live in Atlanta, so that's a big metropolitan area, right?
Hmm.
Real estate is hot there. So I would go outside the city limits about an hour to smaller communities and just
Oh,
drive around, look for houses that are overgrown. You either leave a note, maybe if you have a high budget for marketing, which I didn't,
yeah.
you send postcards and that kind of stuff. And you just, you can skip trace their phone number. Everything is public record. I tell you, it's crazy what the
Oh, no kidding.
information you can buy on
Yeah,
people these days, right? Because that was like the
absolutely.
number one question people would say. Well, how'd you get my phone number? How do you know I own that house, right? It's all public record, to be
Right.
honest.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of those things that I learned early on in my career in self-employed IT work,
Uh huh.
because I did a lot of work with developing websites and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember very vividly attending an online webinar type program. It wasn't really a webinar, but it was like a webinar.
Uh huh.
And in this webinar, a company gave a presentation to our audience, and we were a closed audience, so to speak. In other words, we were all people who were following this one set of teachers,
Oh,
and
okay.
this was a presentation to that group.
Hmm.
And the guy represented a company. I don't remember what the name of the company was, but he was there to basically tell us how his company could fill in the gaps in our mailing lists, how, in our customer lists. So for instance, if we
Wow.
had a customer list and some of the customers we didn't have an email address for, or we didn't have a phone number, or the address was wrong or something like that, his
Hmm.
company could basically take our list and just fill it in with all the right information.
It's so crazy.
And they
It's
could do
so
it
crazy.
often on as little information as an email address. That was it.
Yeah, I got email addresses. Some of
Yeah.
the Some of the homeowners, I had like up to 7, 8 phone numbers. So it's
Hmm.
probably phone numbers that they had years and years and years ago, right? It's
Hmm.
crazy, but you have to call them all to see if you got the right phone number. Like, it's a lot of work.
That's always so interesting about this company too that I'm talking about. It actually was kind of scary when I first heard the presentation. Like, oh my God, the information these people have at their
I
fingertips is
know. Is
just
anything say
terrifying.
any of my
Oh,
information on
privacy.
that?
Forget about
It's
privacy.
just,
Privacy
yeah.
disappeared with the last
What is
century.
that?
It's gone
Yeah. What
now.
is
Yeah.
that?
Oh my goodness. Forget about
Yeah.
what Google is doing. Just look at what the data collectors are doing. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, the information that they were able to collect and then keep up to date, that was the part that just blew my mind, because their records were really, really up to date, and it was all computerized. The whole thing was done computer. There was no person, was sitting at a telephone making phone calls saying, hey, I'm calling your business to check your records or something like that. It was nothing like that. It was all automated, the whole thing. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is like something out of a science fiction novel. So,
well, I'll tell you what I found was even scarier than that for me. And, you know, our listeners probably know this, but it had never dawned on me. So I pulled out 3 of my credit reports recently, right?
mm-hmm.
And on one of them, Walt, it had 26 addresses on there for me. 26. And 15 phone numbers.
Wow.
So essentially now I'm 50, right? So I've moved around a lot. I've never owned a home, and I don't stay in one place for too long. I'm definitely a nomadic spirit, right? But it literally had every address that I have lived in my entire life. I was shocked. So of course I wrote a letter to all 3 bureaus asking them to remove all of that and any, you know, name aliases other than my government name.
Which they are required to do, I believe.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So, but again, I was just shocked. Some of those cell phone numbers, like, I was like, oh my God, I lived in Seattle back in like 2001. What are you doing with it? Like, I don't even remember this number.
Right.
So crazy. Even my home phone number that I grew up with as a child. What? It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Shows what happens when you collect data over the course of a lifetime.
Right.
Okay, but this is a sideline to the main topic, of course, which is this wholesaling thing that you're getting into here. And I didn't realize when you told me that you were diving into the real estate thing, I thought you were doing house flipping or something like that. I didn't realize it was wholesaling.
No, that's too much for me.
That's too much work.
Yeah, it's a lot of nuances, and you really have to know how to work with contractors, deal with contractors. And I don't know anything about building a house or good grade material and all of that stuff. So no, if anybody wants to or is thinking about getting into real estate, this is like, quote unquote, the easiest and least expensive way to do it if you just want to learn about it and make money at the same time. Because again, you get a chance to set your own fee, right? When you are selling the contract from the homeowner to the real estate investor.
Now, by the same token, I would think that some of the people that you are selling these contracts to are themselves house flippers.
Yes. So 9 times out of 10, the real estate investors, they're either, like you said, they're either flipping the property. So they're buying it, fixing it up and flipping it, you know, renting it out or selling it. But most of them are using them as rental properties, especially with the market.
Really?
Yeah, especially with the market in Atlanta is super hot. It is crazy. So I think I probably had like 50-50. Half of my investors are looking to buy and hold, as we call it. And then the other half are looking to sell because the market is still hot, but it's starting to kind of come down now. But the prices in Atlanta are ridiculous. Like I've easily heard of people paying $100,000 over asking price. It's ridiculous.
Well, one of my current co-hosts, a gentleman named Neo Positivity, who lives in Florida,
I like that.
Bought a house almost sight unseen using that kind of situation because of how crazy and hot he didn't buy it. He actually rented it. But he rented it, you know, so quickly. It was like, flip it right now. Bang, boom, you're done. It was that kind of a deal. And he got it. And he was so excited that he got it, you know, because his own place, his own lease had expired. And he needed to move his family. So it was important.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you could wait until, you know, the experts, so to speak, say if you can wait until 2022, that's going to be the time to buy. It's unfortunately, but especially because the, moratorium is going to be ending. And unfortunately, there probably will be quite a few people going into foreclosure and losing their homes. And that would be the time to buy is next year and not now.
Jeffrey was asking, from the live stream. He says, "Have you found your dream home yet, Walt?" And no, I haven't. But that's partly, Jeffrey, because I haven't clearly defined my dream home. Louise has done a better job of that than I have. I still have to work on that a little bit. But I've already been thinking in terms of, we want to buy this year, but probably not. We're probably going to wait till next year, because I agree with you that that's where the timing seems to be playing itself out. And he also has a question for you, Monique. He says, do you use the law of attraction to help your clients visualize their dream homes?
Oh, absolutely. Jeff, I use it for myself. Like, I'm currently using it for my dream apartment, only because I'm not, I'm not home driven. Although Walt, and Jeffrey, I have decided that I'm going to buy a home next year. I'm going to wait.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little surprising, considering your own description, a self-described gypsy, I think you said.
Well, let me tell you, Walt. Of course, there's always a caveat because it's me, right?
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a home, preferably 4 bedrooms. I'm going to take the master bedroom, and then I'm going to rent out the other 3 to tenants. I'll probably live there less than 6 months. And I'll probably move back into a high-rise apartment downtown like I'm planning to do now, right? So it'll be listed as my primary residence, but I probably won't stay there for too long.
Ooh, okay. All right. So a little fancy wheeling and dealing going on.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be a rental property. I'm totally Grant Cardone. I think buying a home works for a lot of people if you have a family and that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you're single, I personally don't find it an asset, but that's just me.
Sure.
So thanks, Jeff. Apartments are homes
they certainly are.
Yeah. To answer your question, Jeffrey, yes, absolutely. I do. And I get them to do, is it okay, Walt, if I kind of explain what I do?
Absolutely.
To Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, Jeff, what I kind of get them to do is the same thing that I do. And if you've been watching the podcast any amount of time when I was here previously, then I'm huge on Neville Goddard and his visualization technique that feeling is the secret, right? So not only are you visualizing, Jeff, but when you're visualizing, you're not thinking of the thing. So I don't think of the apartment that I want. I think of myself in the apartment. So I think and visualize from the apartment, not just seeing myself like on a movie screen, Jeff, where I'm maybe cooking in the kitchen. But when I'm imagining, I've watched that video that I took of the apartment so many times that I literally visualize and put myself in the kitchen. And I'm cooking, or I'm looking out the window, or I'm doing whatever. So there's the difference. And I feel, what does it feel like when I am in the kitchen cooking, maybe making a salad, and I've got some cool jazz playing in the background, and maybe it's the evening time, the sun is setting, and because it has floor to ceiling windows, I can see, Buckhead starting to light up and the sun going down and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's how I visualize, and that's what I teach my clients to do. If you're going to visualize your dream home, I'm like John Assaraf. If you know his story, he talks about it. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much now, but he talked about it in the past.
Right.
Where yes. So where he literally.
Yes, I do that with my cabin. Lots of music.
Cool. Yes. I'm a huge jazz fan. Smooth jazz. I like smooth jazz.
Smooth jazz. Ooh.
Yes. So, John Assaraf, he saw this home in a magazine that he loved, tore it out, put it on his vision board, went about his life. The vision board got packed up. He moved into a new home, if I'm not mistaken, in California, and his son unpacked the box while they were unpacking the new house. Hey, Dad, what's this? Oh, that's my old vision board. And then he realized this is only 7 years later that he actually manifested the same exact house that was on his vision board. And he did not recognize it because a picture that he took out of the magazine was from a completely different angle. I think he said it was the back side of the house. Mm-hmm. So he never knew what the front side of the house looked like. So when he bought the house, he didn't even realize, Jeff. So
that's crazy.
Super, super powerful. Now it was 7 years, and I think probably 7 years for him, Walt, because he packed it up and forgot about it.
Oh,
Like he
sure.
wasn't even focusing on it, you know?
Right. Exactly.
But
And I
for
remember that
me,
story. That was one of the more interesting stories from the movie.
right, it's super cool, right?
It really was. Yeah, no
So
doubt
Jeff,
about it.
you know, I do, but I like to teach my clients that feeling is the secret. And I believe that that's how I've been able to manifest things usually within 3 months. I say that all the time, right? Is because I feel myself into the wish fulfilled, as Neville would
Mm.
say. I live in the end. So I already put myself there as if I already have it. Hopefully that answers your question, Jeff. I hope that was helpful.
I'm reminded of the example that Neville himself gave in that book, and Feeling is the Secret. And I think he actually used it in a couple different places. It's the difference between seeing yourself on a ladder and feeling yourself climbing the ladder.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. When he talks about the ladder, what they call
Mm.
it, the ladder experience,
Right.
experiments.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I got close to it because I tried it one time and I didn't climb a ladder, but I saw a ladder within 3 days. I think maybe like the second day, maybe the third day, I
Hmm.
saw a ladder, which is extremely rare for me. Let me
Hmm.
just put that out there. I'm never anywhere where there's a ladder. In my opinion, I'm not, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, I
There
saw a
it is.
ladder. Oh my gosh, right? So I'm like, maybe I was sort of kind of doing it right.
It also reminds me, do you remember the story that Neville told about the guy who was one of his students who ended up following his teachings and ended up getting an Arthur Murray dance studio out of it? He ended up getting a
Absolutely.
franchise.
You're
Remember that
talking
one?
about E.O. Locker Jr.
Yes,
His
I am indeed.
grandson now has a YouTube channel.
Yes.
But
You want to tell
yes,
that?
yes.
You want to tell that story because that's the rest of the story right there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go,
no,
go
feel
ahead.
free.
No,
No,
no, no.
no, go ahead. You're doing it. It's good.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I've
I
listened
was
to
trying to tease it out of you, so this is working out greatly. Don't worry about it.
yes. So I have watched the video because there's actually a video of E.O. Locker himself telling the story as well as you can read about the story in one of Neville's books. And I don't know which one it is, but, basically what happened was, I think Mr. Locker said that he was around 19 or 20. So he was fairly young
Right?
and he wanted eventually his ultimate goal was to own his own Arthur Murray studio, but he was young, he was inexperienced in business, he didn't have the money to buy a franchise on his own, and so sorry, I'm like, what am I doing here? Okay. And so basically what happened was he decided that he was going to take Neville up on his offer. He was dating had dated a young woman and she kind of dragged him, he said,
Right?
in his own words, kind of dragged him to one of Neville's teachings. She thought that he was a fraud. He was just thinking, oh my gosh, this dude is going to ask for money like everybody else. But that night, Neville said, nope, plate won't be passed. You're not giving me any money. What I'm going to do is I am going to teach you how to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? And I'm never going to ask for any money. So Neville told them about the ladder, experiment. If you end up climbing the ladder in real life, come back the next Sunday, I believe, but it's only for people who actually did climb the ladder. E.L. Locker came back. He didn't mention whether or not he came back with the girl or not. And then that's when Neville said, hey, I'm going to teach you guys to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. I'm going to teach you how to get anything that you want just by using your imagination. And so again, he wanted this think studio.
And
And what,
before you continue with the story, I want to go back to what he actually did because he had to also do the imagining of the ladder situation. And there's a story that goes with that. Remember? Because what happened was he went over to, I think it was to his father's house.
oh yeah, he went over to his mom's house.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. He
And,
did the
and, and
ladder
his,
experiment.
and his father was up on the roof doing some
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yep.
And asked him, what was it, to bring a bucket of paint up or
Yep.
something? Something like
Yep.
that. I don't remember exactly what it
Yep.
was.
That's exactly what
It
it
was
was.
paint. Okay. So
Yep.
he climbs the ladder carrying this paint bucket. And as he gets it up there and hands it to his father, he realizes he just did the ladder experiment with his real
Right. Oh snap. I actually climbed the ladder. And that's when he knew that Neville was like the real deal.
right.
Right. Because he actually did climb the
He actually
ladder.
climbed the ladder. He didn't just visualize it. He did it. He climbed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. If you watch the video, of him actually talking about it, Walt and viewers, it's on YouTube.
hmm
Um, if you actually watch the video, there's two. There's a 17-minute video where he goes
Right.
into depth about the whole story, but then there's like a 7-minute video, after he talks about the story that he just talks kind of like about Neville and being in the book or whatever. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So that's how he got a chance to come back and talk to Neville. And so he describes in the video what he did almost verbatim as well as in the book, but he talks about how he visualized over and over and over again what he really wanted. So what he wanted was this dance studio, and somehow, Walt, I know I'm missing something. I keep jumping to the part where he actually ended up manifesting, being in front of the crowd, because remember he wanted his little Reno studio to
Right.
be the number one studio in all of Arthur Murray's, out of all the dance studios, and they were
Exactly.
dead last.
Right.
They were small and they were last.
Yep.
And everybody thought that he was crazy. There's no way this is going to happen. He had a coworker, Tony, and he told Tony, this is going to happen. You know, I think he gave it 3 months. I don't know. It's something with this 90 days. Okay.
Yeah.
But
well, it's 90 days is part of your life, so that's probably where that came from. But still, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 90 days. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2 weeks, because most of Neville Goddard's stories, they happen in 2 weeks. So
yeah, really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But I think for Mr. Locker, I think he did say it was 3 months. He went from last to first.
Yeah.
And he said that he would visualize himself on stage at a podium talking to a huge crowd of people. You can hear the roar of the crowd. And he said off to his right was a stool, and he saw Mr. Arthur Murray himself coming up on stage to congratulate him for having the best studio. And that's exactly what happened. And it happened exactly the way that he visualized it. But his friend Tony was like, oh man, because Tony, you know, said, oh, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And Neville was like, if it happens, then you have to admit that this is real.
Yes.
And even when it happened, Tony was like, it happened so naturally. You always work your behind off anyway. It probably would have happened. This is no big deal, right? But imagine that, Walt. Imagine going from such a tiny Reno studio, the last on the list, to becoming the top one in just 3 or 4 months. That's almost unheard of, all through his imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. And also how he got the franchise in the first place, because like you said, he didn't have the money for a franchise, not even a tiny one in Reno. He did not have the funds to buy it. But what he did there was he visualized himself shaking hands with I'm not sure if it was with Arthur Murray or with somebody who was running the franchising of the Arthur Murray. I can't remember exactly.
Oh yeah, that's right. Was. That's how he ended up with the first one. He actually partnered with a guy.
Yeah.
And they were partners in it. And he didn't have enough money to buy him out. But then the partner decided that he wanted to leave for whatever reason. And he ended up with his own.
And when the partner left, that's when the visualized handshake happened.
Yep.
The one that he'd been imagining and feeling, and feeling is the secret. He'd been feeling that handshake. It actually played out.
Yes.
He was blown away by it. Yeah.
So that's why I'm such a big fan of Neville's, because I believe that that's true. Feeling is the secret. I don't think I ever put the two together early on in my manifesting career, if you will, as far as feeling it, but that's exactly what I would do. I go to, even still now, Jeff, I go to bed every night inside of my new apartment. Now, I'll
That's
be
nice.
honest with you. Yep. Don't know who, what, when, how, where it's going to
Mhm.
happen. I've already told God by September 30th, right? That's
You
the
said a date.
deadline. I
Okay.
always do,
You
right?
always, I know you do. Yeah.
I always do.
I
So
don't
I was
always
like,
recommend that, but with you, I don't have any doubt whatsoever.
right. And so now, Walt, this is crazy. So now we are talking about, what's been going on with me. And I have been manifesting more money, but aren't we always, right? Who
Right.
doesn't want more abundance, more money, right?
Oh, I know.
And yeah, sure,
You don't
right,
hear that one very often.
right. And so I literally had a conversation because you know that I'm a business coach inside of someone else's business, right? I literally had a conversation around that, around my role there, and was offered a significantly more amount of basically what I want, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's
That's
exciting.
exciting. But
Yeah.
I have also decided that I'm just probably going to take on 2 clients a month. I'm going to go back to my coaching because I miss it. I love real estate. I love real estate. Wholesaling is hard. It's not
It is.
impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. The payoff can be great. But really, while my heart is with manifestation coaching, particularly around self-image and identity shifting, that's just my favorite. I totally believe that when you change who you are from the inside out, everything around you begins to shift because now you're not the same person. You literally have shift identities. Some people maybe call it reality transurfing, right? Moving into a different reality, which I totally believe in as well. Some people maybe call it quantum jumping, right? I believe in
Absolutely.
that as well. So I miss it. I miss my clients. I miss showing up on social media. So I'll still be doing a little bit of real estate in the background, but coaching just has my heart, period.
Well, plus you're reminding us, it's not like you have to do one or the other.
No, you don't. That's the beauty of the way God designed us, right? We
Yeah.
literally get to do anything that we desire. It literally, it's great.
It is cool. By the way, Jeffrey has another question for you. He says, do you watch shows about homes on TV or streaming services and pick out features you like and imagine yourself interacting? And I'm not sure
What?
who's that's for. That might be for me too. I'm not sure who that's for, but go ahead. Give us
Yeah.
a second.
Well, for me, as far as apartments go, I just look online, see what apartments I like. Like I went to maybe 4 different apartments in one day. And I have very specific criteria, Jeff. So let me just put that out there now. If it doesn't have floor to ceiling windows, I'm not interested at all. And
Wow.
and only those apartments for Atlanta anyway are primarily downtown, midtown, and Buckhead. So the apartment complex that I'm looking at, that I'm manifesting, is in Buckhead. And I know that there's been a lot of violence, in Buckhead, but I'm literally on a totally different end of Buckhead than all the foolishness. So that's what I do. I just need granite countertops. And I
Just, she
need,
says,
yeah,
just.
just 3 things. No, 4 things is what I need, Walt. I need granite countertops. I need it to be floor to ceiling windows. I need an in-unit washer and dryer and a garden tub. That's it.
And that's it.
That's it.
Well,
Everything else is
that's
negotiable.
simple.
Yeah, I'm pretty simple, but those things are non-negotiable. Oh, and a parking garage. So I guess that's 5.
Well, also that you recognize, I imagine you knew this for years, you need to be very specific about the stuff that's non-negotiable. Because if you're
Oh
not,
yeah,
you just made it negotiable, right?
right.
Isn't that it?
Exactly. And you know me, Walt, I totally believe that we can have anything that we desire, anything that we desire. So for me, if nothing else on the list, if it doesn't have floor to ceiling windows, if it doesn't have an in-unit washer and dryer and granite countertops, I can't fool with it. I won't even look at it. It's
That's funny.
because I know I don't need to downgrade. I don't need to downgrade my desires.
which is important. That, it's also knowing yourself, but more than anything, it's it's setting your standard for yourself. What
That's it.
what's really important? What I mean, not just what are you making up that's really important. What really is important? What really does float your boat? What really
Yeah,
does?
what really lights your fire, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest mistake I've made in the past is trying to make myself like something,
Yeah, that
which is
you really,
exhausting.
yeah.
It's
And
exhausting.
so many people do it and they don't even realize that, or they haven't been taught. I'll put it that way. They have not been taught that literally we create our own reality. We know that here, right? So if you have a job, but you really desire to have your own business, you've settled for the job. When
Yes.
God says, I could have given you the job or I could have given you the business. It was up to you, but you chose the job. So that's what I
hmm
gave you. Right?
hmm I've been actually going through some soul searching of my own along those
Okay.
lines.
Nice.
It's been an ongoing topic of conversation, the fact that we're in the midst of the gardening season and I'm managing my wife's gardening business.
Uh huh.
And the gardening business is doing exceptionally well, really, really
Yes,
well.
I
We're
remember.
having a great year. But by the same token, it's not really what I want to be doing. I'm glad that it's succeeding. I'm glad that, Louise and I have been able to use and leverage the law of attraction to make it successful, but it's
Hmm.
really not what I want to do. So I had this other project, and I think I've told you about it, that I've been working on during this time. Actually, I'm not doing the work. I hired somebody to do the work, which is the better way to do it, in my opinion. Um,
Yes.
Unfortunately, the person that I hired has got it mostly there, but he he kind of misrepresented his skills, shall we say?
Hmm.
He said he had some skills that he really didn't have, so we're kind of up against that right now. In the past, that would have been a huge disappointment for me.
Uh
In
huh.
the past, that would have been something that could have stopped me in my tracks.
Oh,
Like, oh God,
really?
this just isn't going to work. That would have been a very, very common
Wow.
reaction for me.
Hmm.
This time around, and usually I wouldn't have said it that way.
Uh huh.
I wouldn't have even thought it that way. The way I would have thought it was, well, I can't afford to do any more with this. I would have made a price tag.
Ah.
Now, this time around, I've
Mm.
actually put in more money on this than I normally would have put in the past.
Uh
I
huh.
have a level of success, but also a level of disappointment.
Uh
And my
huh.
instant reaction is, I'm ready to put more money into it. That's a big shift for me.
Yes, that is a huge mindset shift for you.
It
Good for
is.
you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a very
Good
big
for
deal.
you.
And literally, I was dealing with that today. That was
Oh.
one of my things to deal with today. In fact, I had originally wanted another software developer to do the job. It was somebody who created a little plugin for me
Oh.
for a website back in 2013, many years ago. He did a
Hmm.
great job. I loved the work, and then I lost his contact information.
Oh man.
I couldn't remember his name. I didn't have his email. I couldn't find his business name. I couldn't remember his business name.
Oh
I was searching
wow.
and searching and searching. I couldn't find it. So I kind of gave up. I didn't know what else to do, and I needed to get this thing done. So I ended up reaching out to a service I know of where you can find developers, and found this guy who's been doing it. And today we kind of reached loggerheads because one of the things that the thing needs to do is it needs to be able to let people log into their Facebook account and then have what we're offering plug in directly through their Facebook account into the group that I manage on
Oh,
Facebook.
okay. Hmm.
And that's the stage where he didn't have the experience that he implied that he had. So
Mm-hmm.
we're butting up against Facebook's policies about what you're allowed to do and all that kind of stuff. And he's in the finger pointing stage, like, oh well, this is something you were supposed to do, blah 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 blah. And it's like, well, you got hired to handle this stuff, blah 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 blah.
Right.
So okay, so I decided we got to stop that. And I'm sitting there thinking, I wish I could find this guy who I had hired, 8 years ago, who did that great job. I know he could handle this. I know he has the
Right.
skills, and I'm pretty sure he's built out his business now where he's got programmers working for him by now. I wish I could find him. And then I had a brainstorm, which basically meant I was in high vibe and ready to receive something.
Yes.
And the brainstorm was with the plugin he had developed was a WordPress plugin for people who know what
Okay.
WordPress is. And with the WordPress plugin, the way you're supposed to do it, and he did it the right way, you're supposed to actually put in information about who the developer is at the top of the software.
Oh, okay.
And he did that. I had forgotten about that. So I went and looked at the plugin, and sure enough, there was his name and his company name in the code for the plugin. And so I reached out to him. I found his company website, put out a contact to him, and got an email back about 10 minutes later, like, you found me. Hi, how you doing?
Nice. I love it.
Yeah. So that, I tell that as a way of demonstrating that I could easily have given up. My past would have been to give up, to feel defeated, like this wasn't going to work.
Right.
And this time around, I didn't do that. And I attribute that to a number of things. I attribute it partly to having done this podcast for so long and having great folks like you to coach me. Like Cindy Chavez says, I'm the best coach man in America. I've had all these coaches as co-hosts. It's a wonderful thing. I really value it. It is. It's a great thing. So that's part of it. Part of it is that I'm doing this Tanya boot camp, David Strickle's Tanya boot camp, and that has been a major thing going on. And part of it has just been my own development that I've been working on for the longest time. But what it all added up to was this almost intangible thing of shifting the way I felt about what was going on in this particular situation. So that, whereas in the past I would have given up, now it's like, damn it, I'm not going to let this get in the way.
Right. I love that, Walt. I love that. I love that. Love that. Love that. Love that.
It's amazing what perspective can do for you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Jeffrey threw up a comment that gives us a little bit more to talk about on this general topic, as well as tied into what you're doing. He says, I used to be discouraged by real estate, but my heart wants a beautiful cabin in the woods, and I've imagined being in it. Since then, I've gotten to know a few realtors, and the association became good.
Nice. Keep it up, Jeff. Keep it up. Because you'll start to see that the universe, God, infinite intelligence, whatever you call he, she, or it, right? You'll see that he starts bringing opportunities and people your way. Because I tell you, when I started looking for real estate investors, when I started looking for not realtors to buy a home from, but I ran into a phenomenal real estate investor / realtor, and she and I are in talks about starting a real estate investing meetup group in my area because we don't have one.
Really? In Atlanta, there isn't one? That's unbelievable.
I live in Alpharetta, which is about 40 miles north of the Alpharetta Johns Creek area.
So Alpharetta doesn't have it. Okay.
Right. There's kind of one on the west and there's one on the east, but there's not necessarily one directly in the north where we are.
Yeah. That's almost like there was a little sign put up saying, Monique, pay attention.
Right. But here's the crazy part. She used to run a very, very, very successful real estate meetup group for women only just a year ago. Wow. It kind of had to disband because of COVID. They tried to take it online, but it just didn't work.
Didn't work. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she's been wanting to do one ever since, especially now that things are starting to open back up. But now things are starting to heat up a little bit more, so we may have to put it off a little bit longer. But the point is, Jeff, I never would have ran into Lorraine if I had not put myself in the vibration, if I had not expressed to the universe what I wanted, who I wanted to meet, what I was looking to do, right? And it just became a natural fit because I've never run a meetup before, Walt. I don't know anything about it. I love them, but I've never run one before. So how interesting is it that the universe brought me someone who ran an extremely successful one just the year before, and she was looking to do it again. And we just happen not to have one in our area, right? So that's why I say anything you want.
Is this the same person who kind of got you into the real estate in the first place? Because I remember the story was that you had this contact from the past. In fact, it tied into one of the experiments that you and me and Cindy were doing here on the show.
Oh, Miss Shirley.
Oh,
No,
sorry,
no,
that
no,
was a
no.
different person.
Yeah,
Tell,
a
tell
different
people
person.
that story. Remind people of that story because it's been a few months and some
Man,
listeners may not have heard that one.
yeah, that was super. The universe. You gotta love him. So what had happened was when I was still, well, I'm in Texas again, but when I was
Right.
actually still staying here before I moved back to Atlanta. So I knew that I knew that God was leading me back to Atlanta, didn't know why. And for like 2 weeks, I kept pondering. Then when real estate came across my YouTube, it just clicked. Oh my gosh, it's real estate. But in that same time frame, I got an email from Miss Shirley, and Miss Shirley is I wouldn't exactly call her a real estate investor, but she worked with real estate investors
Okay.
back around 2006, I think
Mm-hmm.
2006. Yeah, right before the crash or bubble, like 2007, 2008. So I met her right before then, and we hit it off. And I got this email from her out of the blue. I had not talked to Miss Shirley since 2006. And as a matter of fact, she said she came across my old email from 2006, right? And, wondered, how's Monique? Let me just reach out, see if this is her same email or whatever. And we ended up having a conversation. She sent me her phone number and we ended up talking, and I told her, hey, when I get back to Atlanta, we need to get together. She's had some health issues, so we haven't been able to get together just yet. Not COVID related, thank goodness, but she's had some health issues that has prevented us from kind of getting together. But the moral of the story is I knew that God was bringing me back for real estate. And for Miss Shirley to find my email literally from 2006,
Yeah.
to email me right at the exact same time that God was talking to me about real estate, or revealing to me that was going to be part of the reason why I was moving back to Atlanta, when I had absolutely no desire to move back to Atlanta. I was planning to go back to Fort Lauderdale because I love Florida, right? But I just knew, Walt, I just knew that was the universe pushing me. And again, I always know it's God when it's a decision that Monique does not or would not have made. When I left Atlanta a year ago, I vowed to everybody I knew and then some, I'm never coming back. See you. Wouldn't want to be you. I'm out of here. Right. Atlanta can kiss my patootie because I'm never coming back. That's literally how I felt. I'm like, I'm so over it. I've been here for 20 years. It's time for something different, right? So for me to start missing Atlanta, desiring to be back in Atlanta, starting to think about, I love to drive. So there's a lot of like very, very nice neighborhoods. I had favorite places I like to drive, right, when I would relax.
Yeah.
There's that I'm listening to that jazz again, Jeff, while I'm driving, right? So, God started bringing back those memories to where I started missing it and longing to be back to Atlanta. And that's how I knew, okay, this is God leading me. This isn't what I want, but it's something here. There's a reason why he's bringing me back, even though I may not know what it is. I'm just going to trust him. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to trust him.
And to remind people what the connection takeaway today was, like 2 or 3 days before you got that email contact from Miss Shirley, you and Cindy and I were doing one of the experiments from the Pam Grout books, if I remember correctly.
Yes, we were. We were.
And we were supposed to put out a request to the universe for something that we hadn't received in a while, or I can't remember exactly what it was.
Because Cindy wanted someone, I think hers was someone that she hadn't seen or talked to in a while, like an old acquaintance. And
right,
I think somebody from 10 years ago kind of popped up on her radar or got in touch with her or something. So
and you jumped on that bandwagon and you said, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to go for that one too."
Yes. Yep. And
then
sure
you got the email from Miss Shirley, which is really
what she's doing. She's doing good, by the way, despite what's
Good.
going on with her knees. She's doing good. So I'll probably see her when I get back into town.
That's very cool. And then if I remember correctly, there's also a story about how you got connected to some of your first real estate investors and how they became not only your teachers about how to become a real estate wholesaler, but you also kind of flipped the switch and you became a teacher to them about how the law of attraction works. Tell that story.
Whoa, you don't forget anything, do you? Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. That's
That's
so
how I
crazy.
learned. That's how I learned, Monique. That's it. I just keep remembering
Yes,
the stuff that I learned from good people like you.
absolutely. So yes, I know we only got 9 minutes left. So in a nutshell, right around the same time that God was bringing real estate into my awareness, that's the reason why I was headed back to Atlanta. This real estate video popped up. It was an old video, like 2 years old, by this lady. I'd never heard of her, but she talked about some real estate investors, or her and her husband at the time was just getting into real estate investing. And she talked about how they would go down to the courthouse and file a memorandum so that the homeowner couldn't decide to back out the deal. You know, they couldn't decide, oh, I'm going to sell it to you, but then maybe somebody else comes along with a better offer, then they back out of the deal with you and go with someone else. So
Mm-hmm.
she was talking about how her and her husband, for their business, they go to the courthouse and file this memorandum so that that can't happen. I had never heard of that before. No, none of the other gurus that I was watching had said anything like that. So I just left a little YouTube comment. Didn't expect to hear back from her. I mean, that video was 2 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't look like there had been any recent activity on the channel. So I had no expectation that I would hear from, and I wasn't expecting to hear back. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, but she did. She did hit me back. Come to find out, her and her husband were right there, or right here rather, in Houston, and that their business had evolved. And so the day that I was leaving out to Houston, driving back to Atlanta, I ended up meeting her.
Nice.
Well, here's the kicker, right?
Okay. So there's a kicker to
So,
this.
yes. So I ended up going to her office, which was only 10 minutes away from where my daughter lived. So it literally was on my way out. I didn't have to go out of my way or anything. I couldn't even believe it.
All of the
And
places that
so,
I could possibly be in the world, and it was 10 minutes away from you.
right. So I got a chance to meet her, Walt, but her and two other real estate investors just a month before had decided to form this group that they called Real Estate Professors, the Real Estate Professors. And they had a
Okay.
Facebook group. So I joined the Facebook group. Here I am going to the office, just thinking that I'm going to meet her and her husband, and then, pew, I'm just going to
Yep.
ride out, right? Hey, it's so
Right.
great to meet you finally in person. Come to find out that her and the real estate investors, the other two real estate investors, were in town because they were doing a photo shoot
Ah,
for the new company that they had just formed. So
okay.
not only did I get a chance to meet Ashley, I also got a chance to meet Dan and Marina. That
Okay.
was crazy. I ended up taking a picture with them. We ended up standing outside in between shoots and just talking. And so I ended up telling them, hey, I'm a manifestation coach, because we're all just meeting each other for the first time. They don't know
Yeah,
me and I don't know them, right?
sure.
And come to find out, they believe in the law of attraction and manifestation. And we got into some really deep conversation about manifestation, visualization, scripting, Neville
Nice.
Goddard. Who knew? Three strangers, right?
Yeah.
Not only are we standing there talking about real estate, but we're also talking about manifestation and how they are applying manifestation and the law of attraction to their real estate businesses, which
Hmm.
is how their businesses have become so successful, because they've
Wow.
been using visualization. So they were asking me about some of the tips and tricks, I guess, so to speak, that I teach my clients. And it was just amazing. It was just so amazing. Like I don't know. It's like the icing on the cake. I don't even know. That was just, I love how God not only, at least for me, he not only gives me what I ask for, But then he also always seems to throw some little extra bonus stuff on top
Yeah.
too. I was going to say as if he knew it's what I really wanted, but he does know, right? It's amazing. It's amazing. It's been great.
And I think he said they called their business something like real estate professors or something like
Yep.
that.
The real
Which means
estate
they're basically doing
professors.
some teaching. They're teaching other people,
Yes.
I presume, how to do this kind of thing. So did you end up becoming part of that?
I did. And as a matter of fact, next week I'm going to start, they asked me if I would start doing some kind of not mindset work, but just saying a few words because we have a Zoom call every Thursday night talking about
Mm-hmm.
real estate. And so they were like, hey, Monique, would you be kind enough to, come on and for like the first 5 or 10 minutes, talk about inspiration or mindset or visualization or anything to help, other people,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of encourage them in real estate, but it's manifestation related. That's right up my alley. Say less. Yes,
No
I'm
kidding.
there. Right.
No kidding.
And
Yeah.
I don't mind. I love it. I love, love, love it. Yeah. So it's been
So
fantastic.
so that leads to the natural question, which is if somebody's listening and have always thought about they'd like to do something in real estate, they didn't really know what to do, they didn't know how to start it, where would you send them?
Oh, they could contact me. I don't mind at all.
Okay.
I don't mind at all. I tell anybody, if you want to get started in real estate with little to no money, literally, Walt, YouTube University is going to be your best bet. You do not need to buy these courses. So many people give the information away for free, and I
Mm.
do mean completely for free, right? That you can figure it out. And some of those people are really nice to even hit you back real time, like, So yeah, I would say start with YouTube University if you want to learn how to flip a property, if you want to learn how to wholesale, rental properties, subject to anything you can think of, buy foreclosures, buy tax liens, all of it. It's going to be free on YouTube.
And I would imagine that you probably know which ones are the best ones anyway. So that's another reason to reach out to you because you could direct somebody to, well, if it's flipping you want to do, this is the guru you want to listen to.
Yeah, so I do have a few people that I do follow, but everybody that I follow pretty much is in the wholesale kind of
Mm-hmm.
niche. So if anybody's interested in wholesaling,
So more about the wholesale then. Okay.
yeah. But they are so big that they have diversified their real estate portfolio that they do other stuff as well, but
Mm-hmm.
mostly wholesaling because they pretty much all either started out with wholesaling and kind of branched off to other stuff, or they become so successful with wholesaling that that's their lane. That's all they've been doing for years, right? No matter what the market is, up or down.
Right.
So
But ultimately the real lesson here and the real point I think of what we've been talking about is if you do have an itch to try something like this, you've been thinking about it, and now all of a sudden here we are talking about it on the show. The most important thing to do is to take a step,
oh
right?
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
so let's give them a way to take that step. How do they reach out to Monique? How do they find Monique?
Oh, that's easy. So they can email me at manifestwithmonique@gmail.com. Just how it sounds. My name, Monique, is not spelled any fancy way, just a traditional Monique, right? So all
Mm-hmm.
one word, just manifestwithmonique@gmail.com. I will help them in any way possible. I'm not selling anything. I'm not trying to, hey, if I know it, you'll know it. If you need some recommendations of people to follow on YouTube, I got you covered like a blanket. Just hit me up.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, I'm really glad that you took the time to join us on the program, especially on a day when Cindy and Jackie couldn't be here. And
Yeah,
this has been great catching up with you, so thank
it
you.
has been. It has
I've been
been.
loving it, so
I
thank you
miss
very
you
much.
guys.
I miss you too. Yeah, well, we'll just have to have you come back again. That's all. It's really simple.
I love it. He's like, just come back. That's all.
All righty. So we'll get you back here another time. Thank you very much to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye,
All
everybody.
right.